heck are you doing?
They are hacking your company right now. I'll handle this.
Mia Lee, Billionaire CEO, froze in her office doorway. Jonathan Allen, her janitor, knelt on the floor with her laptop, the one containing classified merger documents. His rough hands typed rapidly. "What the hell are you doing?" she screamed. He spun around, eyes wide with fear. But then she saw what was on screen. Code, complex security code, and her entire network flashing red with "breach detected." Jonathan whispered, "Your company is being hacked right now, and I know how to stop it." But Jonathan's secret was far deeper than computer skills. Behind those calloused janitor hands was a past that would shatter everything Mia thought she knew about trust, betrayal, and second chances. If you want to discover who this mysterious man really is and why he sacrificed everything to save a woman who never noticed him, subscribe and follow the next chapter, because one truth Jonathan reveals tonight will change both their lives forever. 2 years earlier, Jonathan Allen had everything a man could dream of. At 34, he stood at the pinnacle of Silicon Valley success, recognized as one of the most brilliant cybersecurity architects of his generation. His company, Allen Digital Defense, had become the gold standard in corporate protection, safeguarding Fortune 500 corporations from the world's most sophisticated hackers and cyber terrorists. His corner office on the 32nd floor overlooked the San Francisco Bay, where he'd watch fog roll in during late meetings, feeling like he'd conquered the world. His bank account held 7 figures, not that he cared much about money. His reputation was impeccable, built on years of dedicated work and genuine brilliance. But Jonathan's greatest treasure wasn't his corner office or his impressive stock portfolio. It wasn't even his genius mind that had made him a legend in tech circles. His greatest treasure was Emily, his 6-year-old daughter with golden curls that caught sunlight like spun gold and bright blue eyes that saw wonder in absolutely everything around her. Emily had inherited her mother's beauty and her father's curiosity, creating a perfect combination that made Jonathan's heart swell every time he looked at her. Emily was born with a congenital heart defect, a ventricular septal defect that required constant monitoring and regular checkups with specialists. The condition meant she couldn't run as fast as other kids, couldn't exert herself too much, and had to take daily medications that she swallowed with practiced ease despite her young age. But Emily never complained. She accepted her limitations with grace far beyond her years, finding joy in quieter pursuits like drawing, reading, and asking her father endless questions about how computers worked. Her mother, Christine, had died during Emily's heart surgery when she was 3 years old. A rare complication, an allergic reaction to the anesthesia that no one could have predicted, had taken her life while their daughter survived on the operating table. Jonathan had been in the waiting room, nervously checking his phone, when the surgeon had emerged with that look on his face. The look that said everything before words could form. Christine was gone. Emily survived. In one moment, Jonathan's world cracked down the middle. He became both father and mother overnight, a transformation that would have broken lesser men. He hired the best nannies money could buy, the most qualified caregivers with excellent references, the top pediatric cardiologists in California. Emily had the finest care available, the most advanced monitoring equipment, and access to experimental treatments that insurance wouldn't cover. But no amount of money could replace Jonathan's presence, could substitute for his warmth, could stand in for the father's love that Emily needed more than any medical intervention. So Jonathan restructured his entire life around his daughter. He delegated more responsibilities at work, trusted his team with larger projects, and created systems that allowed him to work remotely when possible. He scheduled meetings around Emily's school hours, declined evening networking events, and never, not once, missed a bedtime story. He'd sit on Emily's pink canopy bed, her small body tucked against his side, and read fairy tales with different voices until she giggled and drifted off to sleep. "Daddy," she'd say sometimes, her blue eyes serious. "Do you miss work when you're reading to me?" "Never," he'd answer truthfully. "This is the best part of my day." And it was. Despite his success, despite building an empire, Jonathan Allen found his greatest fulfillment in those quiet moments with his daughter. She was his anchor, his purpose, his reason for everything. Everything changed when Marcus Roberts entered his life like a wolf in designer clothing. Marcus was charming in a way that seemed almost rehearsed, ambitious with a hunger that bordered on obsessive, and seemingly trustworthy with references that checked out perfectly. He joined Allen Digital Defense as Chief Operating Officer, bringing connections to influential investors and a charisma that complemented Jonathan's technical genius perfectly. Where Jonathan was reserved and analytical, Marcus was outgoing and persuasive. Where Jonathan saw code and systems, Marcus saw opportunities and angles. For 6 months, they built the company together into something extraordinary. Jonathan trusted Marcus completely, sharing proprietary algorithms and security protocols without hesitation. He'd stay late discussing strategy, share confidential client information to help Marcus understand their needs, and even gave Marcus access to his personal computer network. Too completely, far too completely. The betrayal came on a Tuesday afternoon in early spring, when the fog was lifting over the bay, and Jonathan was feeling particularly optimistic about an upcoming contract. He discovered that Marcus had been secretly copying their proprietary security algorithms, intellectual property worth tens of millions of dollars, and selling them to competitors through offshore shell companies. The digital fingerprints were everywhere once Jonathan knew where to look. But when Jonathan confronted him in his office, Marcus didn't panic. He didn't apologize. He didn't even look surprised. Instead, Marcus smiled coldly, leaned back in his leather chair, and revealed his true plan, with the satisfied expression of someone who'd been waiting for this moment. "You can't prove anything, Jonathan, but I can prove you've been embezzling client funds, millions of dollars, direct deposits into your personal accounts." Jonathan's blood ran cold. "What are you talking about? I know you haven't, but the evidence says you have." The fabricated evidence was masterful, the work of someone who had spent months, perhaps the entire 6 months of their partnership, creating an airtight frame. Fake bank accounts in Jonathan's name, opened with forged signatures at banks across the country, doctored emails showing Jonathan authorizing suspicious transfers, falsified audit trails that pointed directly to his personal computer, client testimonies that had been carefully manipulated. Marcus had spent months creating a web of lies so intricate, so believable, that it would take years and millions of dollars to untangle. By the time Jonathan realized the full scope of what was happening, his reputation was already destroyed. The news spread like wildfire through tech circles. Allen Digital Defense, the trusted name in cybersecurity, was a fraud. Its founder, a thief. The story was too juicy, too scandalous, too perfect not to spread. His assets were frozen while investigations proceeded. Criminal charges were filed by multiple clients who believed the fabricated evidence. His picture was on tech news sites, his name trending on Twitter, his inbox flooding with hate mail from people he'd never met. The legal battle drained everything he had. Every dollar Jonathan had saved went to lawyers who charged by the hour and billed for every email, every phone call, every minute of their time. The trial lasted 8 agonizing months, during which Jonathan aged visibly. His hair grayed at the temples, lines deepened around his eyes. He lost 20 pounds from stress, his appetite destroyed by constant anxiety. Emily watched her father transform, her young eyes clouded with worry she couldn't quite understand. "Daddy, are you sick?" she asked one evening, her small hand on his arm. "No, sweetheart, just tired, just very, very tired." Though Jonathan was ultimately acquitted, a sharp-eyed juror noticed inconsistencies in the forged documents, and the evidence was too perfectly manufactured to be believable upon close examination. The damage was catastrophic. His company was bankrupt, dissolved during the legal proceedings. His reputation lay in ruins, his name synonymous with scandal. His savings were completely gone, every cent spent on legal fees and court costs. Worst of all, Marcus Roberts had disappeared with all the stolen algorithms, vanishing into anonymity with millions of dollars worth of intellectual property. He'd sold everything to the highest bidder and vanished, probably living somewhere tropical under a fake name, sipping expensive drinks while Jonathan's life lay in ashes. Jonathan was left with nothing, absolutely nothing except Emily's medical bills and the growing realization that his world had ended. No job would hire him in tech. His name was toxic, radioactive. Even companies that believed in his innocence couldn't risk the association, the bad press, the potential liability. No corporation trusted the man who had been accused of corporate theft, even if he'd been legally acquitted. The court of public opinion had already delivered its verdict. His daughter needed expensive medical care, specialists, medications, regular monitoring. His bank account was empty, his credit destroyed, his options vanishing by the day. So Jonathan did what any desperate father would do. He took the only job he could find, janitor at Lee Innovations, a billion-dollar tech company in downtown Los Angeles. The irony wasn't lost on him. A cybersecurity genius mopping floors for a company whose entire network security he could have designed, improved, and implemented in his sleep. But he couldn't even put cybersecurity architect on his resume anymore. That part of his life was over. But it paid enough to cover rent in a small apartment, food for the table, and Emily's medications. The health insurance was decent, covering most of her cardiology appointments, and Jonathan swore he would never touch a computer professionally again. That world had destroyed him once. It had taken everything except Emily. He wouldn't let it destroy what remained. So he mopped floors, emptied trash cans, cleaned windows, and tried to forget that he'd once been brilliant. Mia Lee, 36, had built her empire from absolutely nothing, climbing from poverty to penthouse through sheer willpower and refusal to accept the limitations others placed upon her. Born to immigrant parents who ran a small dry cleaning business in Koreatown, she'd spent her childhood pressing shirts and counting coins, watching her parents work 16-hour days just to keep the lights on. Her mother's hands were perpetually red from the harsh chemicals. Her father's back was permanently curved from years bent over the pressing machines. Education, her mother would say in Korean, folding yet another shirt. Education is your ticket out. Mia took that advice to heart with fierce determination. She earned scholarships through academic excellence, worked 3 jobs through college, tutoring, waitressing, and data entry, and still managed to graduate top of her class from MIT with dual degrees in computer science and business administration. By 30, she'd founded Lee Innovations with her entire savings of $47,000 and a business plan she'd refined over 2 years. By 35, she was worth $2 billion on paper, her face on magazine covers, her name spoken with respect and fear in boardrooms across Silicon Valley. But success came with a price that Mia rarely acknowledged, even to herself. Her marriage to investment banker David Chen had ended 2 years ago in a quiet dissolution that felt more like a business merger ending than a love story concluding. David couldn't handle being Mr. Lee, the man who lived in his wife's shadow, whose career accomplishments seemed tiny beside hers. He demanded she slow down, prioritize their relationship over quarterly earnings, choose him over the company she'd built with her own hands. Mia refused. She wouldn't slow down. Lee Innovations was her baby, her legacy, her proof that a Korean-American woman could dominate the tech world just as thoroughly as any man. David left with divorce papers and a reasonable settlement. No dramatic fights, no tears, no begging, just endings. They had no children. Mia had always said there was time later, after this quarter, after this launch, after this merger. Now there was no later, and Mia found herself alone in a penthouse that echoed with emptiness. Since then, Mia lived for work exclusively. 16-hour days were standard. Weekend meetings were routine. Red-eye flights happened so often she had a permanent pillow in her carry-on. Her staff feared her perfectionism and respected her brilliance in equal measure. She could spot a flaw in a presentation from across the conference room. She remembered every employee's name, even the janitor's, because details mattered, including Jonathan Allen. She'd noticed him from his very first week, though she couldn't have said why initially. Not because he was handsome, though he was, with his tired brown eyes that held depths of sadness she recognized, and strong jaw shadowed with perpetual stubble that suggested he didn't care much about appearance. Not because he was quiet, though he barely spoke except when directly addressed, moving through the building like a ghost. She noticed him because of how he cleaned, methodical, precise, almost intelligent in his approach. The way he organized her office supplies in perfect alignment after cleaning, everything exactly where she preferred it. The way he noticed when her coffee mug was placed slightly differently than usual and returned it to her preferred spot by the keyboard. The way his eyes scanned documents left on desks, not reading, she thought, but assessing, calculating their importance, understanding their context without needing to actually read the words. Once she'd walked in late at night, past midnight, unable to sleep and restless in her empty penthouse, to find him standing motionless before a whiteboard filled with her engineer's security architecture plans, complex diagrams, encryption schemas, firewall configurations. He'd apologized quickly, grabbed his mop, and left. But Mia had seen something in his expression before he looked away. Recognition, understanding, perhaps even correction of errors he'd spotted. She'd filed it away mentally, too busy to investigate, too consumed with quarterly reports to follow up. But she remembered. Mia Lee always remembered details, and this detail felt important in a way she couldn't articulate. But she would remember, and she would learn why. 8 months into his employment at Lee Innovations, Jonathan had settled into a routine that felt almost comfortable in its monotony. Wake at 5 a.m. before the sun rose. Make Emily breakfast, always heart-healthy options that her cardiologist recommended. Oatmeal with fresh berries, whole grain toast with almond butter, fresh squeezed orange juice rich in vitamin C. Walk her to school 3 blocks away, holding her small hand, listening to her chatter about her teacher, her friends, the book she was reading. "Daddy, did you know butterflies taste with their feet?" she'd ask, her blue eyes wide with wonder. "I did not know that, sweetheart." "That's amazing." Drop her at school with a kiss on her forehead. Catch the bus to Lee Innovations, 40 minutes each way that he used to read on his phone, carefully avoiding tech news. Clean floors from 8 a.m. until 7 p.m., moving silently through the building, invisible to the executives who stepped around him without acknowledgement. Pick up Emily from after-school care. Help with homework at the kitchen table while dinner cooked on the stove. Cook simple, nutritious meals that she could help prepare. Bedtime stories at 8 p.m. sharp, Emily choosing the book while Jonathan did the voices. "Daddy, you do the best dragon voice," she'd say, giggling. "Only for you, Em. Only for you." Collapse into exhausted sleep by 9 p.m., only to do it all again. It was Friday evening, past 9 p.m. Jonathan was doing his final rounds of the night, emptying trash cans on the executive floor, where the most important people worked. Most employees had left hours ago, the building falling into the quiet that Jonathan preferred. Fewer stairs, fewer people stepping around him as if he were furniture, fewer reminders of how far he'd fallen. Mia's corner office should have been empty like all the others, dark and locked. But her laptop was open on her desk, its screen glowing blue in the darkness, left behind in her rush to her evening yoga class. Jonathan knew better than to look. He really, truly did. He'd spent 8 months carefully not looking at computers, not engaging with technology beyond the basics, not letting himself remember what he'd once been capable of creating and destroying. But the flashing red alert caught his eye, a notification pattern he recognized instantly, viscerally, like hearing your native language after years abroad. His years of cybersecurity experience couldn't be unlearned, couldn't be forgotten, couldn't be suppressed. His brain processed the pattern before he could consciously stop himself, reading the code the way others read facial expressions. Someone was executing a sophisticated man-in-the-middle attack on Lee Innovation's corporate network, right now, in real time, active, aggressive, and devastatingly effective. Jonathan's heart stopped. His mop clattered to the marble floor, the sound echoing in the empty office. He knew this signature. He'd seen it before, too many times to count. The elegant efficiency of the code, the specific exploitation patterns that targeted common corporate weaknesses, the way the attack moved like water through cracks, finding every vulnerability, exploiting every weakness. The methodology was unmistakable, like a criminal's fingerprint at a crime scene. Marcus Roberts. His nemesis, his destroyer, the man who had taken everything from him, had resurfaced, and he was stealing from Mia Lee. Jonathan stood frozen, mop forgotten on the floor, mind racing with implications. Every instinct he'd developed over the past 2 years screamed at him to walk away immediately. This wasn't his problem. This wasn't his world anymore. He was a janitor now, nothing more. If he touched that computer, if he got involved with cybersecurity again, he risked everything he'd built from the ashes of his former life. His anonymity, carefully constructed over months, maintained through isolation and careful avoidance of anyone from his former life. His job, the only thing standing between Emily and poverty, the only source of health insurance for her medications. His carefully constructed simple life, the routine that kept him sane, kept him moving forward, kept him from drowning in bitterness and regret. If he touched that keyboard, if he revealed his skills, if he saved this company, questions would arise. Who was this janitor who could stop sophisticated cyber attacks? Why did he know so much about security protocols? And when they discovered who he really was, what he'd been accused of, they might assume he was involved in the attack itself. But then Jonathan thought of Emily's hospital bills piling up on the kitchen counter, of Mia's employees, thousands of people who would lose their jobs if the company collapsed from a security breach, of the innocent clients whose data was being stolen right now, their privacy violated, their trust betrayed, of all the innocent people Marcus had already destroyed without remorse. And Jonathan thought of himself 2 years ago, watching his life crumble while Marcus smiled that cold, satisfied smile, standing in that courtroom while lies were presented as evidence, losing everything, his reputation, his money, his identity, while the real criminal vanished with millions. Marcus Roberts had won once. He'd destroyed Jonathan's life and walked away rich and free. Jonathan wouldn't let him win again. He set down his mop carefully, took a deep breath, and crossed the invisible line he'd sworn never to cross again. His fingers found the keyboard like a concert pianist returning to his instrument after years away from music. The muscle memory was immediate, powerful, overwhelming. His hands knew what to do, even as his mind hesitated. Within seconds, he was deep in the code, tracing the attack vectors, identifying the breach points, constructing countermeasures with speed that surprised even himself. He worked with desperate focus, sweat beading on his forehead, eyes scanning lines of code faster than most people could read words. The attack was sophisticated. Marcus had clearly learned new tricks in his years of criminal activity, refined his methods, improved his techniques. But Jonathan had taught Marcus everything he knew back when they were partners, which meant Jonathan intimately understood his weaknesses, his blind spots, his predictable patterns. The attack tried to adapt. Jonathan countered. The malware attempted to replicate. Jonathan contained it. The breach sought new pathways. Jonathan sealed them. He was so focused on the digital battle, so completely immersed in the code streaming across the screen, that he didn't hear the elevator ding its arrival on the executive floor. Didn't hear the soft footsteps on the carpet. Didn't hear the office door open. Didn't hear the sharp intake of breath from someone who'd come back for her forgotten laptop. "What the hell are you doing?" Jonathan spun around so fast he nearly fell backward over Mia's expensive office chair. Mia Lee stood in the doorway, her eyes blazing with fury, her entire body rigid with outrage. She was in workout clothes, yoga pants, running shoes, hair pulled back in a ponytail, clearly having come back from her evening class for something she'd forgotten. Her keys were still in her hand, her face flushed from exercise. Jonathan's voice cracked, his throat suddenly dry. "I can explain. You're on my laptop, my private laptop, with classified merger documents on the desktop." Mia's voice rose, sharp enough to cut glass. "Security! I'm calling security right now! And the police!" "Wait!" Jonathan stood, hands raised in surrender, his heart hammering so loud he was sure she could hear it. "Please, just look at the screen. Look at it. Your company is being hacked right now as we speak, and I know how to stop it." Mia paused, her phone half raised to her ear, her finger hovering over the call button. Something in his desperation gave her pause. The genuine fear in his eyes, the sweat on his forehead, the way his hands trembled. She looked at the screen behind him, saw the red alerts cascading across multiple windows, saw the cascading notifications warning of unauthorized access, saw the code streaming across the screen in patterns she didn't recognize but understood were wrong. Her face went pale, the color draining as if someone had pulled a plug. That's our entire database," she whispered, her voice hollow with realization. "Client information, proprietary software, financial records, everything." "Yes," Jonathan said, his voice steadying now that he saw she was listening. "Someone is copying everything right now, systematically extracting every piece of valuable data you own. In about 10 minutes, they'll have it all. Years of work, billions in intellectual property, client trust. But I can stop them. I just need you to trust me." "Trust you?" Mia's laugh was hollow, sharp, disbelieving. "You're a janitor who broke into my computer in the middle of the night. Why should I trust you? For all I know, you're the one doing this." Jonathan met her eyes directly, pouring every ounce of sincerity he possessed into his gaze. In that moment, he made a decision that would change everything, a decision that could destroy him or save them both. "Because I used to be the best cybersecurity architect in Silicon Valley, because I know exactly who's doing this. I recognize his methods like I recognize my own handwriting, and because if you don't let me stop him right now, in the next 8 minutes, he'll destroy your company the exact same way he destroyed mine 2 years ago." Mia stared at him, her business mind rapidly calculating risks and possibilities. The seconds ticked by like hammer blows. On the screen behind Jonathan, the attack progressed, data streaming out of her servers into unknown hands. "If you're lying," she said finally, her voice low and dangerous, "I will have you arrested and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I will personally ensure you never work anywhere, ever again. Do you understand?" "I'm not lying." "Then stop him, now." Jonathan turned back to the laptop, his fingers flying across the keyboard with renewed purpose. Mia watched, unable to comprehend the speed and certainty of his work. It was like watching a master painter create a masterpiece in fast forward, or a surgeon performing an impossibly complex operation with casual confidence. "He's using a polymorphic encryption wrapper," Jonathan muttered, more to himself than to her, his eyes never leaving the screen. "Clever bastard. But he's got a blind spot in his fail-safe protocols. Always did. Always too confident in his exit strategy." He typed furiously, implementing countermeasures with practiced efficiency, building firewalls that adapted to the attack patterns, tracing IP addresses through layers of misdirection, cutting off data streams one by one like severing Hydra heads. The red alerts began turning yellow, then green. The data transfer slowed to a trickle, then stopped entirely. "Got him," Jonathan whispered, his shoulders sagging with relief. Then louder, turning to face Mia. "I've blocked the attack completely. Your data is secure. None of it made it out. and I have his location traced to a server farm in Nevada." He turned to Mia fully, his expression serious and tired. "Call your security team immediately. Call the police. Call the FBI Cybercrime Division. The hacker's name is Marcus Roberts. He's operating out of a server farm in Henderson, Nevada, probably remotely, and he just tried to steal your entire company's worth of intellectual property." Mia's hands were shaking visibly. "Who are you? Who are you really?" Jonathan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of 2 years of silence pressing down on him. "My name is Jonathan Allen. 2 years ago, Marcus Roberts was my business partner at a company I built from nothing. He stole everything I created and framed me for crimes I never committed. I lost my company, my reputation, my savings, my identity, everything except my daughter. So I became a janitor to pay her medical bills and keep us both alive. I never planned to touch a computer professionally ever again." He laughed bitterly, the sound harsh in the quiet office. "But apparently some ghosts won't stay buried, and some monsters won't stop hunting." The next 3 hours were a whirlwind of activity that left Jonathan feeling simultaneously exhausted and vindicated. FBI agents arrived within the hour, their badges flashing, their questions sharp and professional. Mia's elite security team descended from their homes, called away from dinners and evening plans. Servers were examined by specialists. Data integrity was analyzed bite by bite. Formal statements were taken from everyone present. Jonathan told them everything, holding nothing back for the first time in 2 years. His company, Allen Digital Defense, and the years he'd spent building it from a startup in his garage to a Silicon Valley powerhouse. Marcus's betrayal that had come without warning. The framing that had been so thorough, so meticulous, so devastatingly effective. The trial that had drained every resource he had. His fall from grace into anonymity as a janitor. Every humiliating detail was laid bare under the harsh fluorescent lights of Mia's conference room. He felt exposed, vulnerable, like an open wound being examined by strangers. The FBI agents exchanged meaningful glances when he finished, their expressions shifting from suspicion to understanding. "We've been tracking Marcus Roberts for 18 months, the lead agent said, a woman named Agent Torres with sharp eyes and graying temples. "He's connected to at least 12 corporate espionage cases across 3 countries. Major tech companies, financial institutions, defense contractors. Your testimony, combined with tonight's evidence, could finally help us catch him and end his crime spree." Jonathan nodded wearily, suddenly feeling every one of his 36 years. "Whatever you need. I'll cooperate fully. We'll need you to come in for formal questioning. Your expertise will be invaluable." "I understand." It was past midnight when the officials finally left, their cars pulling away from Lee Innovations' underground parking garage. Mia's security team was implementing Jonathan's recommended protocols throughout the night, their respect for his knowledge evident in their deference. The FBI had assured her that Lee Innovations' data was completely secure, that not a single byte had successfully escaped her servers. Only Mia and Jonathan remained in her office, the silence between them heavy with unspoken questions and new understanding. "Coffee?" she offered, gesturing to her private espresso machine that probably cost more than Jonathan's monthly rent. "Please, black, if that's okay." They sat in leather chairs that probably cost more than his car, sipping espresso from cups that probably cost more than his monthly grocery budget, looking out at the Los Angeles skyline glittering below like scattered diamonds. Finally, Mia spoke, her voice thoughtful and tired. "I did a background check on you when you were hired. Standard procedure. Nothing unusual came up. How is that possible?" Jonathan shrugged, cradling the warm cup in his calloused hands. "I used my mother's maiden name on the application. Miller, Jonathan Miller. It's technically legal. It's on my birth certificate as my middle name. I just wanted to disappear from Jonathan Allen, from who I'd been, from what had happened." "Jonathan Allen was all over tech news 2 years ago," Mia said, her gaze fixed on the city lights. "The scandal was huge. Allen Digital Defense collapsing, the founder accused of fraud. I remember reading about it between meetings, thinking how quickly reputations can be destroyed in our industry. She paused, her voice softening. I thought you were guilty. Everyone did. Most people did. Jonathan agreed without bitterness. The evidence was very convincing. Marcus made sure of that. I'm sorry, Mia said, and the sincerity in her voice made Jonathan look up in surprise. For what? For not seeing you. For not recognizing brilliance when it was literally cleaning my floors every single day. She set down her coffee cup with a decisive clink. You saved my company tonight. You could have walked away, should have walked away, for your own safety. Why didn't you? Jonathan was quiet for a long moment, staring at the dark liquid in his cup as if it held answers. Because Marcus Roberts doesn't get to keep winning. He's won too many times already. Because your employees don't deserve to lose their jobs over his greed. Because your clients don't deserve to have their data stolen by someone I once trusted. He hesitated, then added more quietly, because my daughter needs to see that doing the right thing matters. Even when it costs you everything. Even when it's scary. Even when it's easier to walk away. Mia studied him with those sharp grey eyes that missed nothing, seeing him, really seeing him, for the first time. Your daughter. How old? 8. Emily. She has a congenital heart condition, ventricular septal defect. Requires regular monitoring by specialists and daily medications that cost more than I want to think about. It's why I can't afford to lose this job, why I took the risk of exposing myself tonight. He rubbed his face tiredly, suddenly feeling the weight of the evening. Which I probably have, now that you know I lied on my application. I understand if you need to fire me. I violated company policy. Mia was quiet, her expression unreadable. Then, what are her medications? Jonathan listed them: the beta blocker, the ACE inhibitor, the daily aspirin, the monthly supplements recommended by her cardiologist. Mia typed rapidly on her phone, then showed him the screen displaying Lee Innovations' health insurance benefits. My company's health insurance covers all of those medications. Full coverage, no co-pays, no maximum limits. I know. It's the main reason I took this job. The benefits package is exceptional. I'm going to promote you, Mia said suddenly, the decision forming as she spoke. Jonathan stared at her as if she'd spoken in a foreign language. What? You saved my company from losing hundreds of millions of dollars tonight. You identified a criminal mastermind that the FBI has been chasing for 18 months. You have expertise that my entire security team combined couldn't match. Your skills are wasted pushing a mop. She leaned forward, her business mind already calculating possibilities. I want you to head our cybersecurity division, Chief Information Security Officer. You'd report directly to me. No. The word was immediate, forceful, absolute. Mia blinked, clearly not used to people refusing her offers. No, I told you already. I don't do that anymore. I can't do that anymore. I'm a janitor now. That's all I want to be. That's all I can safely be. But, Ms. Lee, I genuinely appreciate the offer. Truly, I do. It's generous and probably more than I deserve. Jonathan's voice hardened with certainty. But that world destroyed my life. It took everything from me except Emily. I won't go back to it, won't risk exposing myself to it again. Not even for you, not even for a generous salary and corner office. They stared at each other across the coffee table, a battle of wills between two stubborn people. Finally, Mia nodded slowly, recognizing the immovability in his expression. All right, I respect that. But you're not going back to cleaning floors. I absolutely won't allow that. It would be criminal waste of your abilities. She thought for a moment, her mind working through alternatives. Facilities management. You'll oversee the entire building maintenance team. 15 people reporting to you. Better hours, 8 to 5, weekends off. Better pay, triple your current salary. And you can still stay invisible. Still avoid the tech world, if that's what you need. No computers, no security, just managing a team and a building. Jonathan considered this carefully, weighing the risks and benefits with the analytical mind he couldn't quite suppress. "My daughter, the position comes with full executive-level benefits, plus a significant raise. Enough for private school for Emily if you want it. Enough to build actual savings again. Why would you do this for me? You barely know me." Mia smiled for the first time that night, and Jonathan noticed with sudden clarity how beautiful she was when she wasn't being the intimidating CEO. Her face softened, her eyes warmed, and she looked almost vulnerable. "Because you were honest when you could have lied and saved yourself. Because you did the right thing when you could have walked away and stayed safe. Because—" She paused, searching for the right words. "Because I know exactly what it's like to be underestimated, to be dismissed, to have people look past you and see nothing. And I refuse to do that to someone else." Jonathan felt something shift in his chest, a warmth spreading through the cold spaces he'd built over 2 years of isolation. An emotion he'd forgotten he could feel, hope, and something else he couldn't quite name yet. "Okay," he said quietly, his voice rough with emotion. "I'll take the promotion. Thank you. Good decision." Mia extended her hand formally across the coffee table. "Welcome to your new position, Mr. Allen. You start Monday." He shook her hand. Her grip was firm and warm, her skin soft against his calloused palm, and he held it perhaps a moment longer than professional courtesy required. Neither commented on it, but neither forgot it either. Over the following weeks, Jonathan settled into his new role with surprising ease. The facilities team respected him immediately. He was fair in his assessments, knowledgeable about building systems in ways they couldn't quite explain, and never asked them to do anything he wouldn't do himself. He remembered everyone's name after hearing it once, asked about their families, and treated them with the same respect he'd want for himself. "Good guy," the senior maintenance worker, a man named Roberto, told his wife. "Different from the other executives. He actually listens." The other executives at Lee Innovations remained wary of the former janitor, who'd been mysteriously promoted after a single night, their curiosity piqued by rumors they couldn't quite confirm. But Jonathan didn't care about their opinions or their whispered speculations. He kept his head down, did his job excellently, and went home to Emily every evening. But Mia noticed him now, really noticed him in ways that went beyond professional curiosity. She'd find excuses to walk past his small office near the maintenance department, ask about building systems issues that didn't actually exist, request his input on building renovations she could have handled alone with the architects. Their interactions began as professional necessity and evolved into something more personal with each passing day. Each conversation revealed more layers of the quiet man beneath the reserved exterior. He was patient with a depth that surprised her. She watched him spend 25 minutes one afternoon helping an elderly cleaning woman, Maria, who'd worked at Lee Innovations for 15 years, understand the new digital supply request system. He never once showed frustration, never sighed, never checked his watch. He just explained it differently each time until understanding dawned on her face. "You're very kind, Mr. Jonathan," Maria told him in her accented English. "You deserve kindness," he replied simply. He was funny in a quiet, dry way that caught Mia off guard. During a company-wide power outage that sent executives into panic mode about lost data and missed deadlines, Jonathan calmly organized everyone by flashlight, directing them to emergency exits with gentle humor that eased the tension. "Think of it as a tech detox," he deadpanned as one executive complained about his dying laptop. "Your doctor would probably approve." Even the CEO laughed. He was devoted in ways that made Mia's chest ache. Every afternoon at exactly 3:45 p.m., no matter what he was doing, Jonathan would step outside his office or away from whatever task he was managing to call Emily. His entire demeanor would transform immediately, his shoulders relaxing, his voice warming, his face softening into expressions Mia had never seen before. "How was school, sweetheart?" Mrs. Patterson said, "What? That's wonderful, Em. I'm so proud of you." "Yes, we can have spaghetti for dinner." "I love you too. See you soon." Mia would find herself eavesdropping shamelessly, pretending to review documents while actually listening to his side of the conversation, captivated by the transformation. Here was a man who had lost everything: his career, his reputation, his wealth, and his first concern every single day was his daughter's happiness. It made her question everything she thought she knew about success and priorities. 3 weeks after the incident, Mia invited Jonathan to a company dinner at an upscale restaurant downtown. "It's just a professional thank you," she explained quickly, too quickly when she asked. "For saving the company. Very professional. The board suggested it." Jonathan hesitated, his fingers drumming on his desk. "I'd need to find a sitter for Emily. That takes planning." "Bring her," Mia said impulsively, the words escaping before she could reconsider. "I'd love to meet her. If that's appropriate, I mean." The dinner was at Nobu, an upscale restaurant in downtown Los Angeles, where a meal cost more than Jonathan's old weekly grocery budget. Mia arrived first, nervous in a way she absolutely never was for business meetings or investor presentations. She'd changed her outfit 3 times, finally settling on a blue silk dress that her assistant said brought out her eyes. Why did she care what a facilities manager thought of her dress? When Jonathan walked in with Emily, Mia's breath caught in her throat. Emily was absolutely adorable, golden curls bouncing with each excited step, bright blue eyes sparkling with curiosity as they scanned the fancy restaurant with wonder. She wore a simple yellow dress, probably her nicest, and clutched her father's hand tightly, both anchored by him and excited by the adventure. Jonathan looked different too, transformed in a way that made Mia's heart skip unexpectedly. He wore a button-down shirt in light blue instead of his usual maintenance uniform, freshly shaved, revealing the strong jaw she'd only seen shadowed, his brown hair actually combed and slightly styled. He looked handsome, genuinely, undeniably handsome, and Mia allowed herself to acknowledge it fully for the first time. He looked nervous too, she noticed with some satisfaction. Good. She wasn't the only one. "Emily, this is Ms. Lee," Jonathan said as they approached the table, his hand steady on his daughter's shoulder. "She's my boss, the one I told you about." Emily extended her small hand formally, clearly coached by her father on proper etiquette. "Pleased to meet you, Ms. Lee. Daddy says you're very smart and very scary." Jonathan's face went bright red, his composure cracking completely. "Emily!" But Mia laughed, a genuine, delighted laugh that seemed to surprise even herself with its warmth. "Well, Emily, your daddy is very brave for telling me that. Most people are too scared to say it to my face." "You don't seem scary to me," Emily said thoughtfully, studying Mia with those perceptive blue eyes. "You seem nice, and your dress is really pretty. Is it silk?" "It is silk. Good eye. Would you like to touch it?" Emily nodded eagerly, running her small fingers over the fabric with wonder. The dinner was magical in ways none of them expected. Emily charmed Mia completely, talking with animated enthusiasm about her school, her love of butterflies. Did you know monarchs migrate 3,000 miles? Her dream of becoming a veterinarian, her favorite books, her drawings. Jonathan watched the two interact with wonder and something like gratitude swelling in his chest. "She's incredible," Mia told him quietly when Emily excused herself to the bathroom. "Absolutely incredible, so bright and curious." "She's everything," Jonathan said simply, his voice thick with emotion. "She's the reason I get up every morning, the reason I keep going." Mia felt something shift inside her, a fundamental reorientation of her priorities. Looking at this man, this devoted father who had lost everything and rebuilt his entire life for his daughter's sake, she realized her $2 billion empire felt suddenly empty and cold. All her achievements, her magazine covers, her board seats, what did they mean if she had no one to share them with? "Jonathan," she said impulsively as Emily returned to the table, "I want to help with the Marcus Roberts case. Personally, I want to see him caught and punished for what he did to you." Jonathan's expression hardened at the name. "Why?" "Because he hurt you unjustly. Because he tried to hurt my company. Because people like him don't deserve to win while good people suffer." She reached across the table and touched his hand without thinking, her fingers warm against his. "And because you deserve justice. Real justice, not just legal technicalities." Jonathan looked at her hand on his, then back up at her face. His throat tightened with emotions he'd suppressed for 2 years. "Okay," he said, his voice rough. "Together, then." Emily returned, sliding back into her chair with childlike grace. "Daddy, can I have dessert? They have chocolate lava cake. I saw it on another table." The conversation shifted to lighter topics, but something had been established between the adults. A partnership beyond professional obligation, a connection neither had expected or sought. The beginning of something that would change both their lives in ways neither could imagine. When Jonathan tucked Emily into bed that night, she looked up at him with those knowing blue eyes that saw too much. "I like her, Daddy. Miss Lee, she has kind eyes." "She does, sweetheart. And she looks at you like you're special." Jonathan kissed her forehead, his heart full. "Sleep now, Em." But he didn't sleep for hours, lying in his bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about kind grey eyes and silk dresses and the way his hand had felt holding hers. The FBI's investigation into Marcus Roberts accelerated dramatically with Mia's considerable resources behind it. She hired private investigators with international connections, forensic accountants who specialized in tracking hidden assets, technical experts who could follow digital trails through layers of encryption. Money was no object when it came to catching the man who had destroyed Jonathan's life and nearly destroyed her company. Jonathan provided crucial insights into Marcus's patterns, psychology, and predictable behaviors. He knew how Marcus thought, how he operated under pressure, where his ego would lead him, what mistakes he'd make when he felt confident. "He's arrogant," Jonathan explained during one of their evening strategy sessions in Mia's home office. "He thinks he's the smartest person in every room. That's his weakness. He'll get overconfident and make a mistake." They met weekly at first, then daily as the investigation intensified and their need to see each other grew. Professional meetings that lasted longer than necessary because neither wanted them to end. Coffee breaks that extended into lunch. Lunches that became dinners. Late nights in her office or his small apartment with Emily asleep in the next room, poring over data and finding excuses to sit closer together. One evening, working late in Mia's home office with case files spread across her dining table, Jonathan noticed she was staring at him instead of the documents in front of her. "What?" he asked, looking up from the financial records he was analyzing. "You're brilliant," she said without preamble. "Watching you work, seeing how your mind operates, the connections you make that others miss. I've never met anyone like you, and I've met a lot of supposedly brilliant people." Jonathan's heart rate increased noticeably. "You're just saying that because I saved your company that one time." "I'm saying it because it's absolutely true." She stood from her chair, walking closer to where he sat. "Jonathan, what happened to you was criminal in the truest sense. The world lost one of its greatest minds because of one man's greed and cruelty. I'm not that man anymore," Jonathan said quietly, his eyes returning to the documents. "I'm just Emily's father. That's all I want to be. You're both things simultaneously. You're the brilliant mind you've always been and the devoted father you've become." Mia was standing very close now, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something subtle and expensive. "And I think you're exactly the man you're supposed to be, the complete version of yourself." The tension between them was electric, almost tangible in the air. Jonathan wanted to kiss her so badly his hands shook with the effort of restraint, but he stepped back instead, putting distance between them. "Mia, I can't." "Can't what?" "This. Us. Whatever this is becoming between us." He gestured between them. "You're a billionaire CEO. I'm your facilities manager. You deserve someone equal to you, another executive, another billionaire, someone who can match your success." "Equal?" Mia's voice sharpened with indignation. "You think money makes us equal? Jonathan, You have more integrity in your calloused hands than most executives have in their entire boardrooms combined. You sacrificed everything for your daughter without complaint. You saved my company asking for nothing in return. You're hunting down the man who destroyed you to protect others from the same fate, not for revenge, but for justice. She grabbed his hand firmly. That makes you my equal, maybe even more. Money is just numbers on a screen. Character is everything. Jonathan stared at their joined hands, her manicured fingers intertwined with his rough, work-worn ones. The contrast was stark, visible, and somehow beautiful. Two different worlds touching, connecting, merging. "Emily comes first," he said finally, his voice thick. "Always. No matter what happens between us. I would never expect otherwise. That's part of what I admire about you. And I won't let you pay for things. I won't be a charity case or someone you rescue. I wouldn't dream of insulting you that way. And if this doesn't work, then we'll be adults about it and remain friends. We're both mature enough for that." Jonathan looked up at her, his brown eyes meeting her grey ones. "This is crazy, you know. Every logical part of my brain says this is a terrible idea. The best things in life usually are. My entire company started as a crazy idea." He kissed her then, finally giving in to what he'd wanted for weeks. Soft at first, tentative, questioning, she responded immediately, wrapping her arms around his neck, pulling him closer with surprising strength. Two people who had given up on love. He, after losing his wife and his life. She, after a failed marriage and years of loneliness, finding it in the most unexpected place and person. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, their foreheads touching. "So," Mia said, slightly dazed but smiling, "should we talk about Marcus Roberts now or later?" Jonathan laughed, a real laugh, full and free and genuine, echoing in her elegant home office. He couldn't remember the last time he'd laughed like that, couldn't remember the last time he'd felt this light. Later, he decided, pulling her close again. Definitely later. Much later. Jonathan was terrified to tell Emily about his relationship with Mia. Absolutely terrified. At 8 years old, she barely remembered her mother. Just fragments, feelings, the scent of perfume sometimes, a melody her mother used to hum. She understood on some level that it had always been just the two of them against the world, father and daughter navigating life together. How would she react to someone new entering their carefully balanced world? Would she feel replaced, jealous, angry? He needn't have worried at all. The first time Mia came to their small apartment for dinner, a modest two-bedroom in a middle-class neighborhood, Emily greeted her at the door with a drawing she'd clearly spent hours creating. Two figures labeled Daddy and Ms. Lee, standing together under a rainbow, hearts drawn around them in multiple colors, butterflies filling the sky. "I knew you liked each other," Emily announced proudly, her blue eyes sparkling with satisfaction. "Daddy smiles when he talks about you. Like, really smiles. Not the tired smile he does for me sometimes when he's worried about bills." Jonathan's jaw dropped. Mia's eyes welled with unexpected tears. Mia knelt down to Emily's level, treating the child with the same respect she'd give a business partner. "You know, Emily, I really like your daddy too. Very much. But the most important thing, the absolutely most important thing, is that you're comfortable with this. If you ever feel unhappy about me being here or want me to leave, you just say so, okay? You're the priority here." Emily studied her seriously, those perceptive blue eyes evaluating with uncanny wisdom. "Do you like butterflies?" "I love butterflies. They're nature's artists." "Do you like bedtime stories?" "They're my absolute favorite thing. I miss having someone read to me." "Do you love my daddy?" Both adults froze. The apartment seemed to hold its breath. Mia glanced at Jonathan, who looked equally stunned by the directness of his daughter's question, but she answered honestly, because Emily deserved honesty. I think I'm starting to," she said carefully. "I care about him very much already, and I think those feelings are growing into love. Is that okay with you?" Emily nodded, satisfied with the honest answer. Then you can stay for dinner. Daddy's making his special spaghetti with the sauce from scratch. It's really good. From that moment forward, Mia became part of their small family's routine with surprising ease. She'd join them for dinners 3 or 4 times a week, bringing wine for the adults and books for Emily. She'd help with Emily's homework, especially math, which she secretly loved. She'd watch Disney movies on their worn couch, Emily between them, popcorn scattered everywhere. She, who had lived in penthouses, found herself genuinely happier in their tiny apartment than she'd ever been in her empty mansion. The love, the warmth, the laughter, these were things money couldn't buy and success couldn't manufacture. Emily's doctors noticed the improvement at her regular checkup. Her stress levels have decreased significantly, the cardiologist told Jonathan, reviewing the charts. Her heart function is stable, maybe even slightly improved. Whatever you're doing at home, keep doing it. Stress is terrible for heart conditions, and she seems much more relaxed. Jonathan knew exactly what it was. Happiness, the feeling of family, the security of love surrounding them all like a warm blanket. Meanwhile, the FBI investigation was closing in on Marcus Roberts with increasing precision. With Mia's resources and Jonathan's intimate expertise, they'd traced his movements across 3 states, identified his associate network, mapped his complicated financial infrastructure through shell companies and offshore accounts. "We're very close," the lead agent Torres told them during a conference call. "Weeks, maybe days. Your combined information has been invaluable. We couldn't have made this progress without you." Jonathan felt a mixture of anticipation and fear after hanging up. Part of him wanted Marcus caught and punished severely, justice for everything that had been taken. Another part wondered anxiously what would happen after. Would Mia still need him once their common enemy was defeated? Would their partnership dissolve once Marcus was caught? Was she with him or for the investigation? Late one night, lying in his bed after Emily was asleep, Mia beside him, Jonathan voiced his fears in the darkness. "What happens after Marcus is caught?" Mia propped herself on her elbow, looking down at him. "What do you mean?" Us, started because of him, because of that night, because of a common enemy. What if we're only together because we have a shared goal? What if once he's gone, we realize there's nothing else holding us together? Mia was quiet for a long moment, and Jonathan's heart sank. But then she took his face in her hands, her grey eyes serious and certain. "Jonathan Allen, I am not with you because of Marcus Roberts. I'm with you because you are kind and brilliant and devoted. I'm with you because your daughter thinks I'm fun and already calls me her friend. I'm with you because you make me feel alive for the first time in years, maybe for the first time ever. I'm with you because when I'm with you, I forget I'm a billionaire CEO and remember I'm just Mia, the girl from Koreatown who pressed shirts in her parents' shop." She kissed him softly. "Marcus Roberts brought us together through terrible circumstances, but we keep us together through choice. Understand?" Jonathan pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. "I love you," he whispered, the words feeling both foreign and natural on his tongue. "I love you too. So much it scares me." Outside the bedroom door, Emily stood in the hallway, having woken for a glass of water. She heard everything through the thin apartment walls, and she smiled, her little heart full of joy for her daddy. Finally, she thought, padding back to her room, finally we're going to be a real family. The FBI arrested Marcus Roberts on a Tuesday morning in a luxury suite at the Bellagio Hotel in Las Vegas. He'd been preparing to flee the country for Singapore, a non-extradition destination with millions in stolen corporate secrets stored on encrypted drives and fake passports in 3 different names. The evidence against him was overwhelming and irrefutable: wire fraud, corporate espionage, identity theft, money laundering, and dozens of other federal charges that would keep him imprisoned for decades. Jonathan watched the news coverage of the arrest with Emily on one side and Mia on the other, their small apartment television showing Marcus being led away in handcuffs, his expensive suit wrinkled, his arrogant expression finally replaced by fear. "That's the bad man who hurt Daddy," Emily asked, her eyes wide. Yes, sweetheart. He looks mean and scared now. He is both. I'm glad they caught him. Does this mean you won't be sad anymore? I'm already not sad anymore, Em. I have you and Mia. That's all I need. Marcus's trial was fast and brutal, justice moving swiftly with the weight of evidence against him. Jonathan testified over 3 days, finally able to tell his complete story to people who believed him, who saw him as the victim rather than the criminal. His voice was steady, his facts precise, his pain evident. Mia sat in the gallery every single day, Emily beside her on days school allowed. They held hands while Jonathan spoke, sending him strength through their presence. The jury deliberated for only 3 hours, guilty on all 47 counts. Marcus Roberts was sentenced to 35 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole for at least 25 years. As the guards led him away from the courtroom, Marcus caught Jonathan's eye across the room. The hatred there was palpable, burning with impotent rage. But Jonathan felt nothing in return, no satisfaction from revenge, no twisted joy at Marcus's downfall, only relief that it was finally over, that justice had been served, that the monster could hurt no more innocent people. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed like locusts, microphones thrust forward, cameras flashing. Mia handled them with practiced CEO ease, while Jonathan stood uncomfortably beside her. "Mr. Allen is a hero," she told the cameras firmly. "He protected my company at great personal risk. His expertise and courage led directly to the capture of a dangerous criminal who had hurt many innocent people. Lee Innovations is proud to have him as part of our team, and I am personally proud to know him. Ms. Lee, are the rumors true about your relationship? Are you and Mr. Allen together? Is this a workplace romance?" Emily tugged Jonathan's hand, ignoring the reporters completely. "Can we get ice cream now, Daddy? You promised after court was done. And I want chocolate chip cookie dough." The reporters laughed at her innocent practicality. Jonathan smiled, his tension releasing. "Yes, sweetheart. Ice cream time. We'll get the biggest sundae they have." As they walked away from the courthouse steps, Mia slipped her hand into Jonathan's, her fingers intertwining with his naturally, perfectly. "So," she said quietly as they left the chaos behind. "Hero feels good. Father feels better," he replied. "Father and boyfriend feel best." She laughed and squeezed his hand tighter, and Emily skipped between them toward the promised ice cream. 1 year after they'd met on that fateful night, Mia realized with absolute certainty that she couldn't imagine her life without Jonathan and Emily. The 3 of them had become a family in every way that truly mattered, through choice, through love, through shared experiences both joyful and difficult. They'd moved together into a beautiful house in Pasadena, not Mia's sterile mansion in Beverly Hills, not Jonathan's cramped apartment in the city, but somewhere new that they'd chosen together. A home with a backyard for Emily to play in, a garden that Jonathan maintained with surprising skill, and enough rooms for everyone to have their own space while staying close. Emily thrived in their new life with remarkable resilience. Her heart condition remained stable under the watch of excellent doctors that Mia's insurance fully covered, and her cardiologist was optimistic about her long-term prognosis. She'd started calling Mia Mom about 6 months into their relationship, the word slipping out naturally one evening over dinner. "Mom, can you pass the salt?" Everyone at the table froze. Emily looked up, realized what she'd said, and her face fell. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean—" Mia had reached across the table and grabbed Emily's hand, tears streaming down her face. "You can call me Mom whenever you want. I'd be honored to be your mom, Emily." Jonathan had cried too, watching his daughter finally have the mother figure she deserved, watching the woman he loved embrace parenthood with such genuine emotion. Professionally, Jonathan had been offered his old position back by multiple companies. After the trial and Marcus's conviction, his reputation was completely restored. His name was cleared in every database, every article, every search result. Tech blogs wrote pieces about the cybersecurity genius who lost everything and came back. Multiple Fortune 500 companies reached out, eager to hire the man who'd brought down Marcus Roberts and saved Lee Innovations. He declined them all politely but firmly. "I'm happy where I am," he told Mia when she asked about one particularly lucrative offer. "I run a good team who respects me. I have time for Emily's school events and doctor appointments. I get to have dinner with my family every night. And," he added with a slight smile, "I get to kiss the CEO whenever I want." "Not whenever," Mia corrected, pretending to be stern. "I have a professional reputation to maintain in front of employees." "Your reputation is that you're madly in love with your facilities manager. It's quite the scandal in corporate circles. I hear they gossip about us at cocktail parties." "Let them gossip. I don't care anymore." She threw a pillow at him playfully. He caught it and pulled her close. On their one-year anniversary of meeting, the anniversary of the night he'd saved her company and she'd saved his soul, Jonathan asked Mia to marry him. He'd thought carefully about doing something grand and impressive. She was a billionaire, after all. He could rent out a restaurant, hire a string quartet, arrange skywriting, buy a massive diamond. But that wasn't them. That wasn't their story. Instead, he proposed in their warm kitchen on a Saturday morning while making Emily's favorite breakfast. Pancakes with blueberries shaped like smiley faces. Emily was supposed to be asleep upstairs, enjoying her weekend sleep-in. But she was actually hiding in the hallway with her phone, having been tipped off by Jonathan the night before, filming everything with trembling excitement. Mia came downstairs in her robe, hair messy from sleep, no makeup, yawning. She looked beautiful to Jonathan, more beautiful than she ever did in her designer suits and professional armor. "Coffee ready," she mumbled sleepily. "Almost. But first..." Jonathan set down the spatula, wiped his hands on his apron, and dropped to one knee on their kitchen floor. Mia's eyes went wide, instantly awake. "Mia Lee," Jonathan said, his voice steady despite his hammering heart. He held up a simple diamond ring he'd saved 6 months to buy. Nothing extravagant, just a perfect solitaire that caught the morning light. "You saw me when I was invisible, when I'd made myself disappear. You believed in me when I'd stopped believing in myself. You love my daughter like she's your own flesh and blood. You make every single day brighter just by existing in it." His voice cracked with emotion. "Will you marry me?" Mia was crying before he finished the question, tears streaming down her face as she nodded frantically. "Yes, God, yes. 1,000 times, yes. 1,000,000 times, yes." Emily burst from her hiding spot in the hallway with a shriek of joy. "I filmed it. I filmed everything. It's perfect. Daddy, you did so good. Can I be the flower girl? Please, please, please." They pulled her into a group hug, all three crying and laughing simultaneously, breakfast forgotten as the pancakes burned on the stove. "Absolutely, you're the flower girl," Mia said, kissing Emily's forehead. "You're the most important part of this entire wedding. Best family ever," Emily declared firmly, hugging them both tightly. Jonathan couldn't have agreed more. They married in their backyard garden on a perfect spring afternoon in April, when the flowers Jonathan had planted were in full bloom and the California sun was gentle and warm. Emily was indeed the flower girl, taking her role extremely seriously, scattering rose petals with focused determination and precision down the grassy aisle. She wore a white dress with a yellow sash, her favorite color, and her golden curls were decorated with tiny flowers that Mia had helped her place that morning. 50 guests attended the intimate ceremony. Close friends, family, Jonathan's facilities team who had all grown to love their boss, Mia's trusted executives who had finally accepted Jonathan as worthy of their CEO, and Emily's friends from school who thought the whole thing was incredibly romantic. Mia wore a simple, elegant white dress that she'd found in a vintage shop. Nothing designer, nothing expensive, just beautiful in its simplicity. She said she didn't need a $50,000 Vera Wang gown. She just needed Jonathan. Jonathan wore a navy blue suit that Emily had helped him pick out during a special shopping trip. "You look so handsome, Daddy," she'd said approvingly in the store, and that was all the validation he needed. Their vows were personal, honest, and tear-inducing. "Jonathan," Mia began, her voice steady despite her tears, "you taught me that success isn't measured in dollars or deals, but in love given and received freely. You showed me that true strength lives in humility, that real wealth is found in family, and that second chances are absolutely possible if we're brave enough to take them. You saw me as Mia when everyone else saw the CEO. You loved me for my flaws as much as my strengths. I promise to spend the rest of my life loving you and Emily with everything I have." "Mia," Jonathan replied, his brown eyes locked on her grey ones. "You saw me when I was trying to be invisible to the world. You lifted me up when I'd accepted being down as my permanent state. You love my daughter with your whole heart. No reservations, no hesitations. With you, I'm not a failed entrepreneur or a disgraced businessman or a janitor. I'm just Jonathan, the man who loves you completely and absolutely. I promise to spend the rest of my life being worthy of your love and Emily's trust." When they kissed as husband and wife, Emily cheered the loudest of anyone present, jumping up and down with her flower basket. "That's my parents," she announced proudly to everyone who would listen. The reception was joyful and intimate, exactly what they'd wanted. No billionaire extravagance or excessive displays of wealth, just good food catered by a local restaurant Jonathan knew, better company, and genuine happiness radiating from every corner. There was dancing on the patio, toasts that made everyone cry, and Emily staying up past her bedtime because it was a special occasion. As the night wound down and stars appeared overhead, Jonathan danced with Emily in the garden while Mia watched from her chair, happy tears she didn't bother wiping away. Her COO, Maria Rodriguez, stood beside her, sipping champagne. "Never seen you this happy in the 10 years I've known you," Maria commented honestly. "Never been this happy in my entire life," Mia admitted freely. "He's good for you. They both are. He's good for us. We're a real family now. Finally." Emily spun under Jonathan's arm, giggling with pure joy. Her heart monitor, which she wore constantly, beeped steadily, healthy and strong and stable. "Dad," Emily said as they slow danced to a soft song, "does this mean we get to keep Mom forever and ever?" Jonathan looked over at Mia, who had heard the question and was crying again, her makeup completely ruined. "Yes, sweetheart, forever and ever and ever." "Best day ever," Emily declared with certainty. It was. It absolutely was. 5 years after that fateful night when a janitor had saved a billionaire's company and found love in the process, their life was beautifully, wonderfully ordinary in all the best ways. Emily, now 13, was a thriving teenager, with her father's sharp intelligence and Mia's fierce determination. Her heart condition was managed with minimal medical intervention now, just annual checkups and daily medication that had become as routine as brushing her teeth. Her cardiologist predicted she'd live a completely normal lifespan with continued care. She'd developed a passion for coding, spending hours at her computer creating programs and websites. "Just like Dad used to do," she'd say proudly when showing them her latest creation. "You're better than I ever was," Jonathan would tell her honestly, and he meant it. Jonathan still ran the facilities team at Lee Innovations, declining promotions regularly with a smile. He'd been offered the Chief Operating Officer position twice, Chief Security Officer 3 times, and various executive roles more times than he could count. "I found my happiness in simplicity," he'd explained to confused headhunters. "Why would I complicate it for a bigger paycheck?" His team was still the most efficient and satisfied in the company. Employee satisfaction scores were highest in his department. Turnover was nearly 0. And yes, he still occasionally helped the IT team with cybersecurity issues, quietly, unofficially, always effective, never taking credit. Anonymous tip: The IT director would report when asked how they'd solved a particularly tricky security issue. But everyone knew Mia had stepped back from CEO to Chief Innovation Officer 2 years earlier, promoting from within and spending more time on strategy and creative development and less on daily operations and board politics. "I've conquered that mountain," she told Jonathan when making the decision. "I don't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. I want to enjoy the view now with my family." Their biggest surprise came 3 years into their marriage when they adopted twin boys. Marcus and Nathan, now 4 years old, found through a foster care agency. The boys had been abandoned at birth and needed a loving home desperately. "We have so much love to give," Mia had said when suggesting adoption. "Let's give it to someone who needs it." Jonathan had agreed immediately. Emily doted on her little brothers with fierce protective love that reminded Jonathan of how Mia had embraced her years ago. She read to them every night, helped them with their alphabet, and defended them fiercely on the playground. "Nobody messes with my brothers," she'd declare firmly. Jonathan had been terrified of handling newborn twins, diapers, feedings, sleepless nights, the chaos of toddlerhood. But Mia was steady beside him through every challenge, and together they figured it out day by day, mistake by mistake, triumph by triumph. Their home was full of laughter and controlled chaos now. Chaotic mornings getting 3 kids ready for school and daycare, homework battles with teenage Emily, bedtime story negotiations with the twins, date nights when the sitter, a trusted college student, came so they could reconnect as a couple. Ordinary, beautiful, precious moments that Jonathan treasured like gold. One warm evening in late summer, sitting on their back porch while the kids played in the fading light of the backyard, Mia rested her head on Jonathan's shoulder with a contented sigh. "Remember that night?" she asked softly. "Which night? We've had quite a few good ones." "The night you were furiously hacking at my laptop and I thought you were a corporate spy stealing my secrets." Jonathan laughed at the memory. "I remember being absolutely terrified you'd have me arrested. I was sweating so much. I almost did arrest you. I had my finger on the phone. Best decision you never made, not calling security immediately." They watched Emily help Nathan catch fireflies in a jar while Marcus demanded to be lifted higher to see the stars. The boys' laughter echoed across the garden. "If you hadn't come home early that night for your laptop," Jonathan said thoughtfully, "Marcus Roberts would have stolen everything from your company. I'd still be mopping floors and hiding from my past. We'd never have met or fallen in love." "We'd have met somehow," Mia said with absolute confidence. "I believe that completely. The universe wanted us together. We were destined to find each other. The universe or your faulty memory about leaving your laptop at the office," he teased. She elbowed him gently. "Same thing. Fate works in mysterious ways." "I love our life," Jonathan said, his voice thick with gratitude. "I love everything about it." "Me too. I wouldn't change a single thing." She kissed his cheek. "Though I do miss the janitor uniform sometimes. You looked cute in it." "I still have it, actually. You do not." Emily's room, back of her closet. She kept it for memories and future embarrassment ammunition. Mia laughed, the sound rich and warm. "Our daughter is wonderfully sentimental and slightly evil. Our daughter is absolutely perfect in every way." In the yard, Emily successfully caught a firefly and showed her brothers, their faces lighting up with pure wonder and delight. Jonathan felt his heart expand with gratitude that sometimes felt overwhelming. 5 years ago, he'd been a broken man, mopping floors and hiding from his past, raising his daughter alone with no hope for the future. Now he had a wife who loved him fiercely and completely, 3 children who adored him unconditionally, and a life filled with meaning and joy. Not the life he'd planned when he was a Silicon Valley executive, not the life he'd imagined when building his company. Better, so much better than anything he could have imagined. "Hey," Mia said softly, breaking into his thoughts. "What are you thinking about?" "That I'm grateful," Jonathan answered honestly, his voice rough with emotion. "For you, for them, for that night, For everything that happened, even the terrible parts, because it led here. Mia squeezed his hand tightly. Even for Marcus Roberts, even for all the pain he caused. Jonathan considered this carefully. No, I'm not grateful for him or what he did, but I'm grateful he didn't win in the end. I'm grateful that good triumphed over evil. I'm grateful we won instead. We did win, didn't we? Against all odds. Absolutely. We won everything that matters. Emily ran over to them, firefly jar glowing in her hands, twins chasing behind her with gleeful shouts. "Mom! Dad! Look! We caught like 1,000,000 fireflies. Okay, maybe 7, but it feels like 1,000,000. That's practically 1,000,000, Marcus agreed solemnly. Can we keep them forever? Nathan asked hopefully. We should let them go, Jonathan said gently, so they can find their families. They have homes to return to. Okay, the twins agreed reluctantly but obediently. They all watched together as Emily unscrewed the jar lid, and the fireflies drifted away into the darkening sky, their lights blinking like tiny earthbound stars rejoining the heavens. They're going home, Emily said softly, waving goodbye. Jonathan wrapped his arm around Mia, pulling her close, watching their 3 children in the fading twilight of another perfect day. The sky was painted in oranges and purples, the first stars appearing overhead, and his heart was full to bursting with love and gratitude. Yeah, he said, his voice thick with emotion and contentment. Home. We're all finally home. And in that moment, surrounded by his family, the past forgiven, the present cherished, and the future bright with possibility, everything was exactly as it should be. Everything was absolutely perfect.